And we're back with another edition of the State of Sports podcast. I am one of your hosts, Nick Ricario.
And I'm Mac Dolphy.
And on today's episode, we are running a little short. Matt and Peyton weren't able to make it tonight, so Mac and I are here to give you our takes on Game 1 of the San Diego Padres and Los Angeles Dodgers. Obviously, me being the resident Padre fan, Mac being the resident Dodger fan, we're here to give you our takes. Game 1 held in Arlington, Texas, the remade Texas Ranger Stadium. 5-1 victory for the Dodgers. Mac, your takeaways from the game.
Honestly, from both sides of it, I thought it was a little bit of a shaky start for everyone. I think the Dodgers and the Padres both really struggled to get the bats going early. Obviously, the Dodgers came around and finished things off really well, obviously got the win. There was a few key players on both sides of the ball who either showed up or didn't show up. I'm sure we'll get into that a little later with our players of the game and whatnot. But overall, a good showing from the Dodgers, a decent showing from the Padres, but I think both teams really could have done better. I think they didn't come out as hard as they could have, both teams on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I got to agree. I guess you and I, at least the previous podcast, we were kind of expecting quote unquote a classic series, and this game was kind of a dud, to be perfectly honest. It was really long. Obviously, it didn't help that Mike Clevenger, the Padres starter, Game 1 gets injured. And then from there, it's pretty much a bullpen day. So from there, you're just switching out pitchers. You're taking your time between your pitches. Everything is a high leverage situation, especially in a close game. So it kind of takes down the excitement, if you'd say that. I think besides that, my takeaways for the Padres, it was tough. As much as I want to say the umpires were bad for the Padres, it was a little bit shaky as well for the Dodgers. Nothing like it was too biased against the Padres, but definitely some calls that didn't go our way, especially the at-bats with Tatis and Machado. When Tatis, if a ball was called when a ball was thrown, he would have walked, and then Machado the next at-bat, and instead Tatis strikes out. Then Machado comes up, swings on a 3-1, which instead of should have been like a taken ball 4 per se. So yeah, it's just tough from there. We weren't able to capitalize on our opportunities. Obviously, the huge bases loaded thing with Jurickson Profar and Tommy Pham, that sucks. Obviously not Tommy Pham, Jurickson Profar and Trent Grisham. That sucks not to get that, but you're going up against the best arm that the Dodgers have in Walker Buehler, whether you want to attribute his struggles to injury or not. He wasn't his best. Only went 4 innings, but still put up a solid outing for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And that's tough, especially when he's per se effectively wild and you don't know what he's going to throw. Obviously, if you looked at Mac, I'm sure you noticed the blisters on his fingers. Those definitely popping up. Obviously, that's going to be something to watch later on in the series if we get there. But yeah, that's my takeaway for the Padres. Without further ado, I kind of want to just get into the grades overall of the game. Mac, let's go with you first.
For the Dodgers, I'm going to give this one a B minus, just because I think there were a lot of positive takeaways, but there were some negatives. Like you said, Walker Buehler was having a lot of trouble locating early in this game. There were, it kind of not really helped, like you said, by the umpires' calls on a lot of them. You could tell he was really trying to keep the ball low, limit some, home runs, because obviously the San Diego Padres have the potential up and down the lineup to hit those. But he was struggling. He kept leaving balls a little bit too low, and like you said, maybe that's a case of those finger blisters popping up again, as of course we both saw in that close-up that they showed early on in the game. But I think there were a lot of redeeming qualities for the Dodgers about this game. Dustin May came out and looked absolutely awesome, basically untouchable for the 2 innings that he pitched. The bullpen looked really solid. Of course, Trinan came out and pitched an inning and a batter, and he did very well. And Kenley Jansen, of course, limited the damage, and he's always a risk when you throw him out there. On the bat side of things, obviously I was a little bit disappointed in the name brand guys in Cody Bellinger and Corey Seager, both of whom didn't have the greatest of games. Seager did manage to squeeze out a walk. Bellinger, though, went hitless, also squeezed out a walk, Bellinger had 1 hit and squeezed out a walk, but definitely not the best performance from him. There were a couple situations where he was up to bat and had runners in scoring position and couldn't get the job done. He did manage to get on base, but it could have been a lot better from him. That's why we pay him the big bucks. But like I said, I'm still going with B minus because there were other players in the rotation who were able to bolster those kind of missing pieces. Justin Turner had a great game. Um, Chris Taylor as well had a really great game. Very smart base running from him. There was one play I remember where the ball was hit into shallow left field, and he rounded third, looked like he was gonna go, and made the smart decision to go back. So obviously that helps, especially in a 2-out situation. You don't want to be getting overconfident, and you don't want to overextend. So overall, like I said before, a good game for the Dodgers, but definitely not a great game. Still lots of room for improvement. So I'm going to go with a B minus for them.
For sure. From the Padres' point of view, I got to go with a C minus. And people may be thinking, okay, the wait they lost 1-5. How is that a C minus? Well, if you take into account, okay, Walker Buehler. The health of Walker Buehler is going to be very crucial for the Dodgers going into a potential Game 5 if we get there. We'll cross that bridge when we get to that situation, but that's always something you got to look out for, especially when he already pitched, I think, 80 to 90 pitches within the first 4 innings, had location issues down and up, especially with those blisters. So you're thinking, can he throw the off speed? If the Padres face him again, are they going to be sitting fastball? That's something that we have to ask. Dustin May. The broadcasters were talking about, is this a extended bullpen session for a guy like Dustin May? Maybe, but because he only went 2 innings and he looked really lights out. But at the same time, dude, he's pumping hard. So you're thinking, okay, where does he slot in the rotation? Is he going to go Game 4 if we need to go 4 games, or is he ready enough to go Game 3? Because keep in mind, it's not like the regular division and championship series where you have days off in between the games. No, this is just 5 games straight, back to back to back to back. So that's something to ask there. Point 3, obviously the umpires called. Obviously, it was just tough around. Like I don't know how to really explain it. It's just calls were missed, crucial calls that would have benefited the Padres, and if 1 or 2 calls went in our favor, not like a lot, but just 1 or 2 calls, I feel like the game would have, I wouldn't say a really huge different outlook, but just it would be closer, at least on the scorecard. So that's there. Point 4, we didn't expend our high-level bullpen arms. So obviously we threw Craig Stammen. Sure, we threw Pierce Johnson, who's always looked good, especially in the bullpen in all 4 games that he's pitched in the postseason. He's looked good. But we didn't throw guys like Adrian Morejon, who I think is going to be a crucial player in the series for the Padres. We didn't throw Drew Pomeranz. We didn't throw Trevor Rosenthal, guys that we're looking to lean on, especially in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings, when we get there with the lead in hand. So not showing them to the Dodgers early on in the series will hopefully benefit us going into games 2 and throughout the series. Another point, Jay Singler was ejected because I think that it kind of compromises your team's your team's morale when you see your skipper get ejected. Obviously, arguing balls and strikes, but to be perfectly honest, not only this series, but other series around the league today had pretty poor, worse than normal officiating, especially coming out of the playoffs. So that's not something good to look at. Another point, Ryan Weathers looked pretty good coming out. Major league debut, pitched inning and a third, got a strikeout on Cody Bellinger. Sure, he gave up a few walks, I think 2 walks, maybe 2 walks, maybe another hit, but still some of his stuff, especially from the left-hand side going into some of the righties. Obviously, he walked Justin Turner, but definitely looks like his stuff can play. His fastball looks really good, looks like he can really locate it. That's going to be good. And his slider looks like it's got a lot of lateral movement, especially coming from that upright arm delivery. Like how would you say that his delivery was? Because it wasn't 3/4.
It is pretty upright. It looks pretty upright to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's an upright arm delivery, and it looks like he's got a lot of movement, so that's good to see there. And then beyond that, the biggest takeaway for me is that take out 1 inning and an error, we didn't really give up runs. You look at, okay, sure, Jake Cronenworth probably could have thrown the ball a little bit better. Eric Hosmer definitely should have made that catch regardless. That's a run there, okay? So now it's 1-4. Garrett Richards, say he doesn't walk Chris Taylor. Okay, say he strikes him out, then that's 3 outs and you get out of the inning before any damage is done. Okay, Matt Strom just got tagged. Say we got one more out or two more outs or one or two less runs. That's now 1-3, 1-2. It's a closer game. The Padres can really attack, especially in the late innings, with the presence of power that they have in the lineup, just scattered throughout. So I just feel like we got we got in too far of a hole, whether we attribute it to just our play alone or other factors like the umpires. And it just kind of took out the surprise factor of us being able to get on base. And when you throw out really good arms like Blake Trine and Kenley Jansen, when you're just trying to get on base, they're going to be able to limit that, no problem. Especially with late game relievers, you throw them in the hopes that you don't give up the long ball. And when they don't have to even worry about the threat of the long ball, then it just lets them focus on one particular aspect, and that's just getting the outs, whether it's a strikeout or a ground out, fly out, however you get the out. That's what they did. So C-. I know it's tough to say, especially with a kind of crushing loss, and like you said, and like you and I have been talking before, this is that game one's really telling. But I'm hoping that just a few more plays here and there for the Padres can kind of just collectively galvanize this team towards a better performance in game two. And with that, actually, no, before we get to game two, let's talk about our players of the match, our players of the game. Mac, you go first.
One little thing before we get to that, I just wanted to say, if you were unhappy with the umpiring in this game, I've got great news for you. You know who's going to be home plate umpire next game?
The same guy.
Angel Hernandez.
Yeah.
So, there's that.
Yeah.
So if any fans out there were hoping for better umpiring next game at the Dish, don't hold out hope. Anyways, my player of the game from the Dodgers side definitely has to be Dustin May for a couple of key reasons. Number one, obviously, 2 innings pitched, 3 strikeouts. That's a good line. No hits, no earned runs. Another great stat. But I think the most important thing was Dustin May being able to come in and work as sort of a short inning reliever. And what I mean by that is it's really difficult, especially in the postseason, to maintain your composure if, as a pitcher, you're put into situations that you are not familiar with. And as a fan of the Dodgers, I've seen Dustin May go through this whole season, and he has been used primarily as a starting pitcher. So to ask him to come in after Walker Buehler and sort of be the rock on which you're going to build the rest of the bullpen performance on for the rest of the night, I think he did an absolutely outstanding job. He hit triple digits multiple times in this game. All of his stuff had really nasty movement on it. His slider was looking extremely good, which is always kind of like that X factor for him. We know he has that really great 2-seam fastball with a lot of movement, but the slider is really what is telling for whether or not he's on, and he was on tonight. Like I said, not really a super offensive-minded game, even though the score did end up being 5-1. A lot of that came off of, like Nick said, some errors that happened from both the infield of the Padres and just some random pass ball weird stuff that goes on, just baseball randomness. But Dustin May definitely was the rock for the relievers this game for the Dodgers, and I think he was a huge key to why we won that game.
Yeah, definitely was going to say, like, especially after you guys scored a few runs, he was able to come out, throw a shutdown inning, just get the guys back with the bats. Or I'm trying to think. Oh no, it was the inning. Was it the inning before you guys scored runs?
It was, yeah. It was tied 1-1 when Dustin May
he threw his second inning. Yeah, threw that shutdown
right.
inning, get the guys back with the bats, capitalize on the momentum. Yeah, definitely, definitely agree with that. For me, I gotta say it's Pierce Johnson. 4th game in a row, just looking great out the pen. Obviously, you don't want to say that you're gonna have to lean on a reliever to pitch in 7 or 8 games in a row for you, but to be perfectly honest, he's looking really good. Obviously, you're probably going to rest him, hoping you get length out of your starter tomorrow, whether it's Chris Paddock, whether it's Zach Davies. You're just looking to get length, but it's good to see a guy pitch in situations where he's not accustomed to pitching. This is a reliever, keep in mind. This isn't a guy that's supposed to be coming in the second inning when he has been coming in the second inning for the past 4 games. So yeah, there's that. So I'm just thinking that Pierce Johnson is my player of the game. Hopefully he can have some continued success whenever the Padres lean on him. And with that, let's go into game 2. Obviously, you guys have Clayton Kershaw going on the mound. We actually haven't even announced a starter. It's 11:19 p.m. Pacific when we're recording this, so we haven't heard of the Padres starter yet. Let me just do a little digging. But Mac, if you want to go ahead and give your keys to the game for tomorrow.
So my keys for the game tomorrow are number one, above all else, we have to get the bats going early. Like I said before, it was a very stressful experience as a Dodgers fan watching us go tied 1-1 until I believe like the fifth inning. Obviously, after that, the barrage of runs came in the fifth and sixth inning, but it's still concerning because obviously the Padres are an extremely good team, and this was an off night for them. And I honestly do think the Dodgers got really lucky. If the Padres bats had decided to come alive in the later innings, we would have been in some serious trouble because a couple home runs from either Tatis, Machado, Cronenworth, or any number of the guys that can do it on the San Diego roster. And the Dodgers are in serious trouble because it's a lot tougher to hold on to a one-run lead in the eighth and ninth innings than it is in the fifth and sixth innings. Another key part of that, of course, is Kenley Jansen. He came out and looked really good tonight. Came in, got his work done. Only had to face two batters, of course, but still looked like a better version of his usual self, which is a good sign. But obviously, he's going to be the reliever for pretty much every single one of these games, as well as Blake Trinan. So always a concern on that end of the ball. So we need to have bigger leads going into the final innings. The other key to the game, especially game two, is the Stars need to really pick it up. Cody Bellinger especially. Like I said, in my opinion, this was a very down game for him. If he's not going to come out and make a difference with his bat, it's going to be a challenge for us to maintain a level of scoring that we need to beat the San Diego Padres. So my two keys to the game are number one, make sure we score runs early and score runs often. And number two, get more production out of the Stars because that's really going to be the key to try and keep up with the Stars that San Diego has.
Definitely, definitely. My keys to the game, whatever starter we have going on the mound for the Padres. Number one, length. We need to get length out of our starting pitching. That's something that we haven't had in the first 4 games of the postseason for the San Diego Padres. We haven't had a starter go past, I think, 3 innings. I think Paddock went 3 game 1. But if Paddock, Davies, whoever they throw, first pitch tomorrow, we need to get some innings. We need to get some innings really bad because even in this game, we're already starting to tax our bullpen. And against the Dodgers, that's just not going to cut it, especially in a 5-game series when they're back-to-back, 5 games straight. That being said, it's just up to the starters to get the job done and really allow the offense to get into their own. And I think it's tough, especially when a guy like Mike Clevenger goes down game 1 and you're saying, okay, now we have to really spark this offense because we don't want to be relying on the bullpen, even though they did carry us game 3 and this game 4. But at the same time, we just didn't get on base enough. Obviously, you get those both bases loaded jam, and Buehler is able to get out of it. But I think what the Padres need to do, game 2, this leads to my second key of the game, is play small ball. Obviously, this is the age of the home run. Everyone loves to hit home runs. Everyone on this team can hit home runs. But I think the key here is going to be getting on base, taking the runs when you can get them, not being greedy, or being greedy. What am I saying? Being greedy and just getting all the runs that you can when you have it, because you don't know, especially with the electric arms that the Dodgers can throw out of the bullpen and have out of the starting rotation from time to time. You never know when you're going to get runs. So it's just crucial to capitalize on the opportunities that you get. And that's something that the Padres didn't do today. And if they did, they would have won. So that's my key for game 2. Just better clutch hitting for the Padres and length out of the starters. And that's always the recipe for the win. But how can you go against that, especially with a performance like tonight from the Padres? But I think with that, it's just going to wrap up this episode. Mac, do you have any closing thoughts?
Not really. I do want to say I hope Clevenger gets healthy over the offseason because obviously he's a big talent, and it's sad to see him not be able to pitch at his best. And I really did hope that we were going to get a full like 6-7 innings out of him tonight. So prayers up to him for sure. But
Yeah,
other than that,
I was going to say, right as you're saying that, I'm looking at the top of Padres Reddit, and a reporter said, Clevenger said, the discomfort feels like bones hitting in the back of my elbow. and that is not a good
Ooh, that's
sign.
not good.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Hopefully the Padres can come out game 2. For me, obviously, Max hoping for the Dodgers to take a 2-0 lead. And with that, we'll leave you with another episode of the State Sports Podcast. I am your host, Nick Vicario.
And I'm Mac Dolphy.
And we will see you tomorrow. Peace, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Hey everyone, it's Nick from State of Sports. Thanks again for tuning in to another edition of the State of Sports Podcast. If you don't already know, we are on all of your podcast streaming platforms. That means Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, just to name a few. If you're on Apple, make sure just to give us that 5-star rating. It really helps us expand this podcast that much further. Don't forget to check us out on social media. That means at State of Sports Pod on Instagram, at State of Sports SD on Twitter, and we have a YouTube channel, State of Sports. That's right. So for those who are on YouTube already, thanks for watching, and those who aren't, make sure to give us the like, comment, subscribe, the whole bit. Make sure to turn on those post notifications too, just to give you guys a heads up of when we post. And lastly, don't forget to send us your comments. We always want to improve as a podcast, so your feedback is always greatly appreciated. So once again, this is Nick from State Sports. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.